So we'll make this a part 2 to that one. I'm actually going to make a video also. I've had a 4-part series to the first video I put out, which is called "So You Want to Die and Not Come Back." However, they're recorded. I just never put them out because I've been just making other videos, you know. But once I put them out, I put them out. I haven't had a chance to upload them either. I mean, I just have them in the little memory, the memory card, and then I have to pretty much upload them. But anyway, the reason I actually want to make this video now, I want to tie in the second video I was talking to you about, and I want to make this disclaimer. I'm not a fan of Charles Manson. I'm not a fan of Pablo Escobar. Why I actually am interested in the mindset is just as I consider them disruptors. You know what I'm saying? To the system, to the matrix. They're considered not being sound. So when you see safe and sound is just making sure you're safe right in that middle ground. Your body's always trying to look for that neutral base dominance, right? We can have a perception of your body being a prison planet, or it can be a vehicle for your evolution. You know what I'm saying? But that's just all based on your perception. We're in Midgard right now. You can either experience hell or heaven here. It's just depending on how you cooperate with the system, I guess, right? I'm gonna have you listen to something real quick, because this is actually very interesting.
Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Liberty Mutual. They customize your car insurance so you only pay for what you need. And by switching, you could...
I live where there's no TV, there's no radio, there's no clocks, there's no electric lights. The girls carry water. They don't wear makeup. They have their babies by themselves. They go in the shack and squat down and have their babies. I live on the ground.
Yeah, I'm a Star Wars.
I live on the earth. I lived in Hollywood, and I had all that. The Rolls Royce and the Ferrari and the pad in Beverly Hills. I had the surfboard and the Beach Boys and the Beaskies and the Neil Diamond and the Rob Scott and the Jimmy Griffin and Elvis Presley's, Mesca Bestleys and all them guys. The Dina Martins and the Nancy Sinatras and the Gaffer Safran. Will you do it to me? I hear you do it good, honey, and all that kind of. Will you come up to my house later? So I went through all that, and I seen that was a bigger prison than the one I just got out of, and I really didn't care to go back to prison. See, prison doesn't begin and end at the gate. Prison is in the mind. It's locked in one world that's dead and dying, or it's open into a world that's free and alive. Drugs, LSD, I don't consider a drug. I don't consider peyote a drug. Those are more or less religiously significant awareness, mind-expanding apparatuses that come from the intelligence of the universe. The reason that the girls liked me was, hey now, I'm all around you, Hey now, up on your heart I can sing through you. And I play and I sing, and they say, hey man, you got soul in that music. And I said, yeah, I play a little bit, you know. I like music. And they said, man, you're really somebody. I said, oh, I am? Oh, I just got out of jail. I don't know what somebody is. They like my music. They say, man, we want to get you over. I said, get me over for what? They said, we take you down here to Beverly Hills, and we want to get you in because you're a star. I said, I'm a what? They said, you're a star. So they took me to the Beach Boys, and I went and I got on the surfboard, and I rode around, and I looked, and I said, gee, Huela Chingazos, this is more trouble than what I just got out of. You got nine, look at yourself. You got to wear that, whether you like it or not. You got to do things. You got to get up and go through all kinds of changes, whether you want to or not, doesn't matter. Your whole life is put in your paycheck. You couldn't pay me all the money in the world to do something I don't want to do. If I'm shoveling the barn and you want me to go Des Kevin Rumflower, I say, no, I'm doing something right here. I'm helping this blind man. I feel better in doing what I want to do. I did not break the law. Jesus Christ told you that 2,000 years ago. You don't understand me. That's your trouble. Not my fault because you don't understand me. I don't understand you either. But I don't spend my whole life trying to put the blame over on you because my cigarette didn't light or because something didn't work right. What do you want to call me a murderer for? I've never killed anyone. I don't need to kill anyone. I think it. I have it here. I don't need to live in this physical realm. I walk around in the physical realm, and I put on the faces, and I talk, and I play, and it's just a big act, man. In the spiritual world is where I live. I exist in places you never even dreamed of. You talk about, this little physical realm you live in, guilty, and is he in sin? How's your courts guilty? How many people do you think you've hung on the ventilators in the nut wards and forced medication on them? You see what I'm saying? You don't have any idea what the hell's going on. If you knew what the hell was going on in your own system, then you'd say, now I see what's creating this. Society's creating it. Society's saying, we want these Rambos. We want these killers. Oh, wow, man. Look at that dude there. And you got little kids. Look in the book, where they selling in it. Oh, yeah, Sears and Roebuck. Rambo from 12 to 15. Kai Karate from age 5 to 17. Then you got all your kids out here doing these crazy things. Now you want to come and say, Charlie Manson's the father of our country. We're convicting you for being Jesus Christ. We're convicting you for being the devil. We're convicting you for being responsible for our actions. I'm not responsible for anyone's actions but my own actions. In my whole life, I've burglarized a grocery store, sold some nickels and dimes, busted open a stamp machine, stole a few automobiles, and cashed a couple checks. I'm a petty car thief. I've been with prostitutes and bums and winos and all my life. The street is my world. I don't pretend to go uptown and be anything fancy. I can, but I find more real in the world that I'm in than I do the tinsel. And the real world is the one I have to deal with every day, Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
Is Charlie...
So, safe and sound, right? See, the reason he's in a safe place, locked up behind bars, is for that reason. However, I made this example in the previous video, how Pablo Escobar was allowed to do what he was doing because it was like a human experiment. Okay, they wanted to see how far technology can go by trying to stop this guy who was disrupting the system. All right, the government, okay, if you look at your mind, is the government for the trillions of cells in your body. Okay, the government you see outside of you basically is in control of how you perceive your life to some extent, based on having control over media, having control over the food, okay, and drug administration. And just basically the media will feed you information, and not to say that it's fake news. It's very real. Half of the time you're just thinking that something is real based on how it is worded. But the whole thing is, it's not like when you read the Bible. I can read the Bible from the perspective of something is outside of me doing all this, or I can look at it from the perspective of it's talking about me. When you look at the news, you're listening to the news from your fight or flight ego space, and this is why you're put in a certain fear state and you're easily controlled to that extent. Somebody who's in fear is easily controlled. Okay? Now, guys like Pablo Escobar, guys like Charles Manson, guys, many different people like El Chapo, which is from the Mexican cartel and whatnot. A lot of the times they were even able to accomplish something like this that we would consider way left wing or left field, is due to lack of fear and the type of guts you have to do certain things. See, this is kind of like when we look at wiping out the competition from the aspect of doing it in a physical way. There's man-made laws to prevent all that, right? But we do this half of the time when we are just debating, when we're doing certain things. We are when we debate, we are trying to kill each other's ideas or each other in some aspect, right? Because what makes an individual? There's people who are certain individuals. They'll say, I'm a vegan activist, or I'm a carnivore, or I'm a round earther. But upon entering a debate, is like literally entering war territory with that individual. And if they're able to smash the idea that makes you that symbol or label that you put yourself as, then you technically got murdered. You lose your credibility. How are you rated here in society? Through a credit score, right? So you have credibility, accountability. But how much accountability and responsibility do you take for yourself? This determines, like, are you God of your realm? Like, there's gods of the ocean, gods of the air, the God of nature. There's the different God. But what is God? God is an authority figure, right? So when you have your reality, how much of reality do you have authority of? You know? But we're at the mercy of being fearful because we're overpowered by an actual system outside of us, which this system, when you realize it is actually you, this fear, okay? You know what? Let's say a fearful individual's courage is another person's fear. That's where their real power and courage comes from, is when another person's in fear. That's where a fearful individual's courage comes from. But if you're an individual who's not in fear, but you're an individual who's speaking from a space of power, okay? It's not fear that you're going to inflict on others. It's more of an influence and respect. And these people are there because they respect themselves, right? They're in a state of power. Like you always hear, your vibe attracts your tribe. So when you're in a fearful state and you're inflicting fear on others, okay? Just think about you as the individual who's putting yourself in that kind of fear, or you're not aware that you're in a fearful anxiety type of state, and then you get sick, and then now you're in a more fearful state and you depend on doctors. Look at all this dependability you have to put your power outside of yourself. I am in hopes that Jesus is coming down. I am in hopes that a doctor is going to cure my sickness and diseases. I am in hopes that the world will change. But you see, this is the thing though. If you're in hope, you're always in hope, right? Jesus Christ, let's say, because I spoke to a lot of religious figures, a lot of religious people, and they'll tell me, hey, Jesus is coming back. You just got to have faith. You got to have faith. Let's say that person dies. Did they ever experience that coming of Christ? Then you'll experience other people. Let's say you die, you got implanted that mind virus. You die, you pass that down to somebody else. Let's say your children pass it down to their grandchildren and children's children and children. And then let's say 500 years down the road, you're still hearing the same thing where Jesus is coming. You got to have faith, right? But that person that died, where are they going? Are they faith? So then I asked this person, so where's that person that died, right? They never got to experience Jesus here in the waking state. Oh, well, they go home back to Jesus. Okay, so then why are we fearing death? Right? Because I can just say, okay, I'm going to die now so that I can go to Jesus. I don't have to wait for him to come here. I'll go to him. Oh, but you have to live here and have faith and strengthen your faith in him. So let's say, for example, somebody has diabetes or high blood pressure and they're on this medication for 9 years, because I've spoken to people like this too. And they still have high blood pressure, but they have to stay on that medication. So it's like the medication is not healing you. What it's doing is suppressing the symptom of high blood pressure. But how did you get high blood pressure to begin with? There's people who are on the same medication for 9 years. And I said, well, damn, why are you taking this medication? Medication is supposed to heal you, isn't it? Yeah, but and I'm like, well, you're just taking it because you're in hopes that one day you wake up and you say, oh, the medication 20 years down the road is going to heal me, right? You may die and you say, well, I was on this medication in hopes that it would heal me. But everybody thinks they're walking around sane and healthy. But the whole thing is, you know how I know nobody's healthy? The moment that you go and stir the waters up a little bit by going on a actual detoxing, a real deep detoxing protocol, you'll see how all these flu-like symptoms are going to start to come out, how you're going to actually start to experience like you're in hell, right? The withdrawal to try to get away from these foods, how they're going to fucking try to, destroy you to some extent. You feel like you're dying because these foods are drugs. Do some shadow work, for example. You may live your reality and say, "Oh, my life is good, everything's fine," but you're always experiencing certain things that trigger you. But do some real shadow work, and everything starts to look like it's falling apart because you're stirring the waters up, right? So, are you really? Where are you really? That's the whole thing. Where are you really? Are you really just in that neutral, safe, and sound zone, right? Where you'll just keep repeating the same patterns of safe and sound? Because here's the thing, though. I made the example in the previous video. Upon death, and I'm going to make the full video on the alien invasion so you get an understanding of this. But I did link the video in the description of the ISIS thesis. But these viruses that come in contact with your DNA, you being the supercomputer that you are, why do we have junk DNA? Why is only 2% of the viruses that have our DNA activated makes you as the individual that you are? Only 2%, right? So upon death, during this death process, this DNA comes in contact with your DNA, and it's meant to help you in the evolution of who you are as this individual. But this evolution as the individual that you are the trillions of cells. You are these people that you see outside of you. So when you talk about saving the world or saving the planet, start to question why the Egyptians tried to study death so much. Why did they go so much into death? But then religion comes out and they put you in the perspective of death, to fear death, right? To fear death. I've had people come here and say, "Do you know where you go when you die? You must be saved by Jesus, because if you're not saved by Jesus, you're going to hell." Right? So they put you in this fearful state, the state that you have to be polarized to one thing. And that polarization, they even prevent you from dwelling into knowing anything from the opposite end. So that means that if that's the opposition and I'm at war with something, wouldn't I want to know more about my enemy than anything else? Wouldn't I want to know? Let's say if I am an MMA fighter, I would love to get a blueprint on the training that my opponent is having, just so that I can go in there and have an edge on my opponent, right? But everything's always done in secret. The only thing that's exposed to them is the mental warfare to get into each other's mind. And then if the weaker-minded individual gets in there with that opponent, regardless of how skillful he is, because the other person was able to get into their mind, they already won that war. Right? Because they've already infiltrated the mind. Again, the mind is all, the universe is mental. So why is the mind so important here? Regardless of everything that you do, there is no such thing as anything that matters to you. If it matters to you, then it will, that's why it's called matter. It will materialize in your reality. When you listen to certain speakers and you may not grasp what they're getting, right? But the whole thing is that when you're listening from a certain space, maybe ego and whatnot, you'll pay more attention to how they're saying things rather than what they're actually saying. So it'll be harder for you to grasp something, right? When you want a car, you may start to see it everywhere, something that you didn't see before. But only upon your attention, now you're starting to see the car everywhere. It's not that it was never there. It's just that you're now paying attention to it, right? So notice how a lot of people say, "I want to learn so much. I want to learn so much." If there's a real stimulation, a real trigger within you to know, you're going to know. Like Brother Panic once said, it's not how much you will get to know, it's how much you want to know. And that's a fact. Because again, if I have a partner and some situation triggered something in me that she may be cheating on me, oh, I'm going to be a fucking the most professional spy hunter. I'm going to be the most professional detective, the world's greatest detective. You'll see, I'll uncover all stones, but I'll find everything I want. But at the end of the day, when you do find it, what ends up happening? But what wants to know? The ego or the spirit? Because at the end of the day, let's say if I found out, right? I can go one of two ways. I can go and attack the bitch, or I can attack the dude, even create a crime, get locked up, and then regret what the fuck I was doing. Now my experience is taken away from me, and now I'm in a safe place. Just like these people are, they're safe and sound. Because I went technically insane upon certain things that I gained intel on, right? So I can also just say, leave that goofy bitch, fuck whoever it was, walk out, right? And change who I am as the individual, because the shit happened to me for a fucking reason. It happened to me for a reason, right? Something in my life I wasn't fulfilling, and I wasn't fulfilling my partner, so that may have happened. But if I don't change, I'm going to attract the same person in another body. So instead, I work on myself, I evolve as an individual, and I'm going to attract a different person now. I'll attract a different situation. Look at this as when you do go through the whole evolutionary process. You're going through many deaths in life. You may have a fucked up day, but the next day you feel like a rejuvenated individual, right? You may even, let's say it matters how you wake up. Don't wake up on the wrong side of the bed. It also matters how you go to sleep. So when you're living your life, pay attention to how you are sleeping, and also pay attention to the life you're living, because it goes hand in hand. So, I mean, that's all I wanted to cover for this video. If you like this video,